Yeah, great question. And Daryl refused to read my bio, so I had to do it on my own. And I'm glad you didn't, Daryl. I'm glad you didn't read it. So I am now working with a number of people, but one of the primary places where I am is in Oakland, working with the National Equity Project, and I'm working on developing and creating leadership programs for transformational leadership. And here's the bottom line to it. What I have noticed is that we have leaders in our communities, in our schools, in our communities, in our government, in lots of different places, but we have leaders who are talking a good show, but they're not walking the talk. They are talking equity, they are talking the elimination of oppression, they're talking about the privileged systems that are around, but at the end of the day, they are in a machinery, they are in a system, they are working in some environment that is perpetuating the very conditions that they want to change, and they don't even know they're doing it. So in a sense, they've become hypnotized, or they become part of the problem, even though they are leaders who are calling for transformation. So my work at the moment, and what I'm very excited about, is looking at how do we tap into these leaders who are about social justice, who are about transformation, who are about change. How do we tap into these leaders and help them become truly transformative leaders? And when I say leaders, I'm talking about young people, I'm talking about leaders of organizations, I'm talking about people who are teachers, I'm talking about parents. So when I say leaders, I mean it broadly. Anybody can be a transformational leader. But it's about waking these leaders up to what they are doing on a daily basis that is perpetuating the very conditions they want to change, and providing the tools and the skills and the insights to do something different so that transformation comes along. That's what I'm excited about. So we're finding ways to do that. You know, I've been working with a bunch of leaders over the past couple of years, where the question is, when you walked in the door today, what was your plan for transforming our oppressive systems into equality? What was your plan when you walked in today? And then at the end of the day, I'm asking them, what did you do that moved towards transformation? And what did you do that maintained the status quo? Just asking that question has people squirming, for one, has people talk about accountability. They're looking at themselves and saying, well, you know what? Most of what I did today was reproductive. Reproductive meaning it's maintaining the system the very system I want to change. And then we're looking at, all right, so let's look at tomorrow then. What are you going to do tomorrow? And we're trying and having some success in getting leaders to take a really good look in the mirror and be accountable for being a transformational leader. And they need a lot of support. They need reconditioning. They need protection to do that. And we're setting up systems around them that do that. So those are some of the things that I'm really excited about, and getting leaders to really take on the charge of being transformational instead of reproductive.
Yeah, I was wondering, what's the cost for transformative leadership?
Yeah.
The cost? Say more. What do you mean by the cost?
Meaning if I feel like if I want to take on some kind of leadership that's different, a role or a strategy or a vision that's unlike something that others have used before, because I want to accomplish something in a way that's unlike we've reproduced it in the past, that when you come up against normity or the way it's always been done, that there's usually a cost you pay. So I was wondering if folks who have taken on this program or taken on this kind of leadership, if there's some things you're seeing that some penalties they're paying for taking on transformative leadership.
Well, it's risky, right? it's a definite risk, and that's one of the reasons people don't do it, or people shy away from it. They risk losing jobs.
Yeah.
They risk losing prestige. If they have that, they risk losing status. You know, there are those very, very real risks that are associated with it. But what is happening is when I think about the cost, I think about the internal cost of them not becoming transformational. Internally, people are messed up. Internally, people are walking away or walking home or walking away from their jobs, going home from their jobs, going back the next day, and they are messed up inside. They know that they're not doing what they need to be doing. And it produces a couple of things. One is psychologically and emotionally, it produces cognitive dissonance, right? Where they're going about doing their thing saying, well, you know, I'm a transformational leader, and I'm doing what I can, even though they're reproducing. So it produces a dissonance inside of themselves. When I'm working with people, that dissonance comes to the forefront, and they're having to shake, and they're having to squirm, and they're having to look at themselves, and they're having to say, if I'm truly going to be a transformational leader, then I want to do it in a way where I don't lose what I have in front of me to lose, like a job. So in order to do that, there has to be protection built around people. People are not going to do it if there's not protection. I mean, some people will. Some people will say, well, I don't care. I'm just going to do it. But most people, especially if they're in some position of authority or status or influence where they actually have the possibility to make changes, transformational changes, they need to have protections around them. So I'm talking to people about how do you be strategic in becoming transformational? How do you be, as Paul Kibble talks about, strategically subversive to do the work that you want to do? What kind of protections do you have to build around? So here's an example. I'm working with some superintendents who are claiming to be transformational leaders in the educational system, closing the opportunity gaps, closing the equity gaps that exist in education. And we're working with them to build protection around them so that as long as they're doing the transformational work, as long as they're doing the equity work, they cannot be fired from that job. So school board policy that protects them to do the work of transformation is one of the protections around them. And building in that kind of protection where people can, the policy protection and the legal protections and so on, where people can be less fearful. So that's on that legal level or policy level. And then it's building the critical mass of supporters who are around them who are not going to come after them when they make some moves around transformation. And that means community leaders, parents, and so on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Hugh, how would you, if someone said, what's leadership, transformative leadership, what's the difference? I mean, how do you define transformative leadership for someone who's not sure with that terminology?
Okay, yeah, transformative leadership is taking on a problem that you have no clue how to solve. And it's like taking on the problem of dismantling racism in our schools. You know, we don't know exactly how to solve that problem, but a transformative leader has vision for solving it and gets in the game of solving it without knowing that they're going to be able to solve it. That's one way I look at a transformational leader. It's called, some call it adaptive leadership, where you don't know the solution to the problem, but you're going to engage in problem solving anyway.
And giving permission. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And giving permission for leaders to do that, and then support to do that. So, you know, it's the easiest way for me to describe it is that The difference is, you know, a transformational leader, someone who's working on changing the conditions around them for the vision of equality, for example, or equity, versus a reproductive leader, which is somebody who maintains the status quo, maintains things as they are. And again, when you look at becoming a transformational leader, you are walking into the unknown. You know, if you're a transformational leader, if you're walking into the unknown, you know that this conference, the White Privilege Conference, is going to have 180 speakers and 130 workshops. You know that. You know that there will be keynotes, and you know what the topic of a keynote would be. You know the topic of the presentations, of what that will be. So there's some knowns that you have there, but transformational leadership goes into this conference, I'm just using this as an example, with a vision that this will do something around addressing issues of privilege, and you don't know what the result's going to be yet.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know how you're going to get there necessarily, right? But if you go into this conference with reproduction in mind, then you know you are setting up discussions, and you're setting up keynotes, and you're setting up presentations and workshops and all of that without asking the question. And this is what a transformational leader does, or transformational leaders. They ask the question, how is this going to be in service of transforming privileged systems? Just asking that question is transformative. So if we do our work and we don't ask those questions, then we're a reproductive leader. If we go and do our work and we say, I wonder if this is actually changing what we want to change, that's transformational leadership.